A black man was shot and killed by the cops after allegedly trying to kill a black woman and her 2 little kids. New York City police are now looking for 3 black women who assaulted a white lady on a city bus, and groups of black teens and young adults are looting stores across California and making off with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. And where are the woke warriors? Well, they're standing in the streets, screaming and ranting and raving on behalf of criminals. Because, see, they don't want a world free from injustice. They want a world free from consequences, even, apparently, if that means throwing other black folks under the bus. A woman lost her mind on a group of protesters outside her apartment complex this weekend, and to be fair, she had a point. See, this is Arabella Foss Yarbrough, a mixed-race woman of black and Native American descent, so she should check all the boxes. And she was pissed off because a group of Black Lives Matter town criers had shown up to the building where she lives to demand justice for 20-year-old Andrew Teckle Sundberg, who was shot and killed by police last Thursday. Here's the story. Sundberg was killed by police snipers after a 6-hour armed standoff with the cops while barricaded inside his apartment. Why did the cops show up in the first place? Well, because Sundberg allegedly opened fire into the apartment rented by Yarbrough, which was across the hall from his. The attack left bullet holes through the wall of Yarbrough's home, which she shared with her 2-year-old and 4-year-old sons, who were at home at the time. Now, according to a GoFundMe that's been set up for the mom, Sundberg had allegedly been stalking and harassing Yarbrough for months. She claims he tracked the sound of her movements in her apartment before opening fire through the wall and trying to kill her. She called the cops, who showed up and helped her and her sons get safely out of the building. Sundberg then opened fire on the police, and the standoff ensued. Now, police are now reviewing body cam footage from the 50 or so officers who ultimately showed up to the scene and haven't yet said what exactly led to the police shooting Sundberg, although I'm thinking that allegedly shooting into someone else's apartment, nearly killing their toddlers, and then opening fire on police might have been some contributing factors. But it turns out that protesters don't much care that a black man shot up an apartment with a black woman and her young children inside. All that matters to the pitchfork mob is that another man with melanin was gunned down by the cops. Activists immediately took to the streets to demand justice, not for Yarbrough, who was attacked by a crazy dude, but for the gunman who, it appears, tried to murder her. And Yarbrough wasn't having any of it. Here she is confronting the group of social justice warriors for basically not giving a crap about her black life.
I'm sorry, I'm upset, and I'm sorry it had to come this way, and the fact that I'm even apologizing for this shows you that I'm hurt all around. I shouldn't even be apologizing, but I'm sorry, I'm expressing my anger. But all I know is for 3 years I lived here, and none of you guys knocked on that man's door to see if he was okay. Not at all. He played loud music every day to cope with his mindset. There was casings in the hallway. The shot went through my door to the pillar to the kitchen. I was cooking food for my kids. He shouldn't know. It doesn't matter. He shouldn't have been dead. Y'all should have came and helped him when he was alive. Now I can't get my because all you guys want to be here. My kids have to see you guys celebrate a man's life that tried to kill him.
Valid point. And you know, it's funny because the same woke mob that has all the free time in the world to scream about police shootings can't seem to find the energy to deal with actual racism. In New York City, for example, police are now searching for 3 young black women who reportedly assaulted a 57-year-old grandma and left her needing staples in her head after they accused her of being a Trump supporter and said that they hated all white people. According to the New York Post, the attack happened in early July in broad daylight aboard a city bus. Jill LaCroix, who said she was the only white person on the bus, described how the trio of young black women suddenly started screaming at her that all white people are going to get what they deserve, and demanding to know if she voted for Trump before beating her in the head. The incident is now being investigated by the NYPD's Hate Crime Task Force, not that anyone who normally screams about hate crimes really cares, because, you know, this isn't the right kind. And leftist social justice warriors will ignore it. Just like they ignore the string of smash and grabs across California that show hordes of looters, most of them black, busting into shops and making off with armloads of high-end stuff in broad daylight in full view of the cameras without a care in the world. Here's one that just happened last week when a group of 6 black people shoved past a security guard and lifted $500,000 in designer handbags from a Maxfield store in Malibu. But see, groups like Black Lives Matter, they're not in this to right wrongs. They don't want a world free of racism. They're not after a society rid of injustice. They want a culture free of consequences for anyone who fits the select profile of the oppressed. Doesn't matter if you shoot into an apartment with a woman and her toddlers inside. Doesn't matter if you beat a white lady bloody on a bus or if you smash the windows of a Nordstrom and make off with cartfuls of handbags and Rolexes. If you fit the description of a marginalized minority with an axe to grind, you cannot be held accountable. And any measure of justice against you is nothing more than a racist system meant to hold black folks back. The same groups who stood in the street demanding justice for an alleged attempted murderer couldn't care less if this black mother and her children had been gunned down by a lunatic, because that would have been more acceptable than the lunatic being gunned down by the cops. If she and her 2 sons had been left bleeding out on her kitchen floor last week, she'd have been just another nameless, faceless casualty in the never-ending saga of black-on-black violence, and we would never have known this story. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about these idiots, their double standards, and their supposed devotion to black lives, you are as blind as they are, and twice as dumb. And that's your Reality Check, America. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble pages, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.